You've found AHO Radio. We're authentic human outliers coming together to help heal the fear of being authentic. To bring back genuine human conversation. No hype, no sensationalism, just honest talk about the critical issues affecting society, affecting humankind. And now, here are the hosts of AHO Radio, John Krotek and Bill Protzman. And a very good day to everyone. Bill Protzman here, AHO Radio. John Krotek, buddy, how are you doing, man? Welcome back.
Seems like it's been forever, but I survived the virus and back here full steam ahead and super excited about this interview today. And you're probably wondering about the owl, right? But
yeah, wondering about the owl. It looks a little owlish there.
Well, yeah, we'll talk more about that today, but it's super excited to have today's guest, JD from Chicago. And good to see you too, Bill. We love what's going on out in California, and things are good.
Things are good, man. Things are good. Hey, JD Gershbein, welcome to our crazy, man. AHO Radio is pleased to have you aboard today.
Hey, man, I feel like I'm in the right place, and that is some thumpy music you have there to start the show.
Thank you.
I got to believe Bill is behind that at some level.
He's the bongo guy. You know, when he figured out the music, JD, I was like, holy cow, did he hit it right? Because every time you hear that, it gets you going. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, and none of this, 10-second music clip stuff. I mean, let's get real here. We're doing a show, folks. We want.
No, that was a real theme song. That was a real opening theme. Kudos.
I wish I could remember where that came from. And thank you, by the way, because and if you're listening out there, there's free music. You can go and get it, but it's worth paying $10 to get something that just really rocks, right?
Absolutely.
And musicians, artists, we appreciate that. Thank you for buying our stuff. Thank you for doing it legally, right? And dropping us a few bucks here and there. We really appreciate that, guys, as musicians. Hey, JD, welcome aboard. I'm reading JD's bio, John, and I'm like, this is so cool because there's so many things here to just unpack. In 100 words, there's so much. And one of the things that you are going to resonate with is how JD refers to this as the attention economy. And, we did that show about the noise and thunder of internet marketing. It's like, not going there. We don't go there. Outliers aren't there.
Yeah, different type of communication. And, that's, like I said, we're going to talk about the owlish, but he's on top of it. JD's on top of it. And it is communication that not many people know a lot about. And, what he's doing is he's taking it back to the roots, back to our human center, our core, and making it real again. And that's what I'm saying. I'm super stoked to listen to JD and talk with JD today. And yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's go there. So my question for you, JD, how did you get started? How did you figure out that it wasn't about fame and noise and thunder? It was about something else more fundamental. What was the moment for you where that came alive?
Well, I don't know if I'm really all there yet. I'm still on a path of discovery. I'm a guy that has had a very non-linear arc in my professional life. I never worked for a company, although I work for companies now. They retain me for consulting and leadership development with their teams, but I'm kind of still figuring it out. And anything I've ever tried to do, I've tried to do by example and put my own spin on it, my own DNA on it. That's what works for me. Sometimes I hit it, other times I don't. But when I hit it and when I know it's right, I glom on and I'm in it for the long haul.
Is that in any way at all related to the stealth approach of an owl?
Could be. You've done your homework on owls, I see. I've always identified with the owl, and I know there was some owl references made even before we got on the air. And I've just identified with the creature. And who would have thought that something so innocuous from my junior high years, what you folks call middle school nowadays, could have actually been the foundational piece of my personal brand. And I happen to be a personal brand strategist. So if I'm going to go out there and talk about how others should treat themselves as brands, or amplify their brands, or strategize about their brands, I better walk my talk. I better have enough ammunition to let them know here's how it works. It's not a guessing game at this point. It's about putting things out into the universe and figuring out what's right for you based on the feedback of others.
Awesome. So that being said, people that are listening to our conversation and watching the screen, and why the barn owl? Tell us about the barn owl.
That's a great question. I love all owls. I'm an equal opportunist when it comes to owls, but the barn owl, I just love the look of this creature. I love the heart-shaped face, which kind of speaks to my emotional intelligence. It's the ultimate predator and hunter, and it's hard to believe that as good as this species is, that they're endangered. Owls are raptors. They must be endangered because of a dwindling food supply, but for the most part, they're nesters, they're shelters, they're givers, they're all those things that I identify with in business.
Awesome. And they're hunters too.
And they're fast.
And they're fast. You know, somebody told me once that an owl could literally knock you off a ladder.
You don't want to mess with these things. You really don't. They're so cool, and many collectors worldwide who collect owl memorabilia, but you don't want to mess with them. You certainly don't want to get them mad. You don't want to mess with their young. And I think that kind of tenacity is an important trait in business. Anything you look to the animal kingdom and can draw from, and look how companies have named their enterprises after animals, they usually take some characteristic or some piece of that species that they apply to their marketing.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
JD,
you mentioned, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I was going to take that to a slightly different level. Are owls improvisers? Because I know how you like to play in the world of communication, right? And shoot from the hip. And that's such an amazing quality. So how did that come about, and how's it tied to an owl?
Well, the owl is the 5-tool player, gents. And I'm guessing that improv figures prominently, although being in the animal kingdom, the instincts take over. They must go out and hunt and gather and provide for their families. And I think that the animal kingdom is probably a little more regimented. It all depends on the food chain.
5-tool player. Can you unpack that for me a minute? Because I heard it, but I wanted to go through.
Oh, that's a term from baseball. They talk about a baseball player being 5 tools. You've got the the speed. They run. They hit for average, hit for power. They can defend. And they can run, hit for power, hit for speed, defend, and throw.
Got it. Okay.
Those are the 5 tools.
I like it. So it's like
sorry, my LED ring light was inhibiting my ability to think clearly during the 5-tool explanation.
No, we set that up. Through the matrix, we can adjust that.
Thank you. Thank
you.
No,
you did good. So you mentioned a word a few minutes ago called leadership, and and leadership means a lot of things to a lot of people. It's such an important word, but it's also important in so many areas of people's lives, right? Mm-hmm. Family, business, community, and you as a consultant, what would you, I hear the comment from so many leaders, John, I don't even know what's real anymore. I don't know what's even real. Where do I go to the next meeting, or who do I reach out to? What would you, as a skilled professional, on this journey of communication, what would you say to those leaders that are listening out there that are having a real hard time at finding something authentic? I hear it a lot, JD. I mean, it's crazy how much we hear that. And is it the digital world? Is it the spirit? I don't know. Tell us.
No matter how much business changes, and we know that it's on this path of relentless change, leadership remains the top topic. It remains the top topic, not just for leaders to become better leaders, but leadership development from within, and how to create the leadership impulse in people. And I noticed that in my own career, it seemed to skyrocket when I started applying the principles of leadership into my content and in my conversation. Prior to that, I felt, okay, I've got some specialized knowledge on this website called LinkedIn. It was in very high demand. I was speaking all over North America. I was in conferences of these amazing companies and speaking with their leadership teams. And once I got to their level, once I met them where they live and spoke about how this thing could help people affix the principles of leadership into their daily routines online, I became a person of intrigue, and that's where the conversation really started to explode for me. We're all looking to become better versions of ourselves. We keep hearing about this better version, whether you're a leader, whether you're an executive coach, whether you're a project manager, whether you're a salesperson. This better version has seemingly taken over. So we're all developing professionally. We're all on the road to inquiry. We're all pursuing our passions in professionally and personally, whether it's thought leadership, whether it's to be a better father or mother, or whether it's to break the glass ceiling, whatever the cause, whatever the purpose, that transcends into a leadership piece. And I just try to support the goals of leaders, established leaders, aspiring leaders, and emerging leaders, because I know what they want. I've been there.
I have a challenge for you though, because one of the things that it takes to support leaders is the ability to see further than the current leaders, or even as, I think this is a 7 Habits story, the guy who climbs the palm tree and calls down to the masses who are following him, wrong forest. You know, they've gone into this thicket that they can't get out of. And your personal statement of not going with the flow, but swimming upstream is an interesting sort of slant on that. How do you stay in front of leaders while at the same time swimming upstream against the current?
That's a great question. And that plays into my whole aspect of being fearlessly authentic. In the early going, I wanted to be the smartest guy in the room when it came to my field, which is LinkedIn and social networking and personal branding. These were areas that I covered, that I was extensively trained for, and that I felt I could go toe to toe with knowledge-wise with any person in the world, and still do. But when it came to addressing people and being in their presence and watching the way I would comport myself and speaking confidently and all those qualities that leaders embrace, that's where it became very real for the people on the other end, that there was a leadership component to what I did. And all I've ever tried to do, gents, is lead by example. I'm okay with being quirky and offbeat because, hey man, that's what sells. And what gets me on a podcast that has outliers in the title. So
yeah.
Whereas I envision myself in that outlier space, I'm also part of the pragmatic mainstream, and I need to retain a certain element of my brand that's going to be compatible with the people who are retaining me, because I take myself, I take what I do very seriously. I just don't take myself seriously at times. I like to self-efface, I like to have fun, and I like a subtle infusion of humor into what I do. And sometimes, you know, that quirkiness tends to be a little off-putting, but so what? That's the whole nature of differentiating and being yourself. And that's how I do it. There's no blueprint for any of this, I'm finding. So the great people who are working in social media or in technology or artificial intelligence or all of these coming fields, it's their quirkiness that drives their innovation. And that's what they stand for. That's what they're putting out.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, you know, and you said a word a few minutes ago, intrigue. You know, I became intriguing. And, you know, words are extremely powerful, as we all know. And power leads, for me, to mystery, and it leads to titillation, and then it leads to charisma. And
all great words. Those
all
are
this aura. Yeah, well,
yeah.
And it's you. And so what I love about what you said, JD, when you identify with your core, with your aura, what makes you tick, it really doesn't matter, like you just said, what people think, because this is me and I'm here to help you or to add to something of creation to make it better. It just makes the world a better place when people like yourself navigate what I would consider, as Vishen Lakhiani would say, the culture scape. You know, this culture of ours that everybody thinks that you have to be in lockstep with. And guys like you is the reason why we can have a show like the Outliers, and people that are listening that want to get to where you're at, and the methodologies, they don't have to do it like JD does it or Bill does it or myself, but at least they know that they're not alone. You know, how does loneliness enter into that?
Well, there's this movement now about people trying to get people to find their inner voice, or that that in musical terms for Bill is to strike that chord and that harmonic blend between what their personality can realistically deliver for them and how they're going to be perceived and met in the real world. So when you're putting yourself out there at face value and you want to be taken as a thought leader or a trusted advisor or an executive leader or a solutionist or an innovator or a high impact corporate contributor, whatever your archetype is, however you want to be associated with, you have to be congruent. You have to message out to the world, this is what I do, this is who I am. I'm not somebody that I'm trying to be. It's what comes naturally. So it took me a while to learn this, because as much as I've been around improv and the authenticity concept, still I had to be, I thought, politically correct and buttoned up and couldn't say the wrong thing, and really had to kind of run on the straight and narrow, because people were retaining me for very sophisticated engagements, and I didn't felt that they wanted me to come in and do material or shtick or be entertaining. I had to educate. I had to transfer knowledge, and there's a way to do it and there's a way not to do it. But as this thing has evolved, we've noticed that we're humanized. LinkedIn is a platform that has become exceptionally humanized over the last, say, decade, as we tape this here today, 9.5 months into a pandemic in 2020. So now it's about filtering in and being a part of this attention economy, trying to, as they say, cut through the clutter. And the people that are really cutting through the clutter are the ones who are making the emotional impact as well as the intellectual impact.
Do you feel that that emotional impact is something that has been co-opted by hype and fame and attention, or is it still possible to have an emotional impact there in where it matters?
I hope not, because as a member of the social media trade, since I started out as a early adopter, it's encouraged us to be authentic. And somehow authenticity became a desired trait of leadership. I think if you look for the last several centuries at the great leaders in history, I'm not sure they really acted within their own authenticity. I don't think they gave a damn about authenticity. And now it's what we really embrace. It's a core value for many, certainly of mine. And I can spot it. I can spot when people are being disingenuous a mile away. And I think that's another byproduct of the social media revolution, is we have an opportunity now to really shine within ourselves.
Can you
I absolutely,
go ahead.
Well, I absolutely, just real quick, I absolutely love that, because it's a spirit of optimism. But what's really cool about what JD just said is that there's so much work to be done. And you mentioned education. Okay, so the concept of networking, which I know, which is what you help people do, JD, you know, how often have we, the people listening and ourselves included, how often have we gotten somebody reaching out to us, and we get them into our network, we get them into our fold, and then the next thing they're doing is they're making a sales pitch. You know, I don't think, remember how we were saying, you just said this, JD, there's people that are doing it right, there's people that are kind of doing it wrong. That to me is the biggest turnoff in the world, which tells me, based on what you just said, that there's still room for growth here. We still have this amazing opportunity.
Oh,
Tell us about that. Tell us about that technique from a networking point of view and why it doesn't really work.
Well, there's bad actors everywhere, fellas. I mean, and no matter where you go, everybody's selling you something, right?
Right.
Can't avoid it. But you know what? When you think of the personal branding equation and what's on both sides of that and how people stick in the minds and hearts of others, I think just by doing things right, and this is almost hard to believe for some people, by doing things right and coming forward with ethics and courtesy and arriving from a place of service and empathy, you start to build a brand. I don't sell anybody anything. I'm offended by what I see. It's annoying, it's intrusive that people will try to sell you at every turn. And the most egregious breach of ethics of all is right at the point of invitation to connect on LinkedIn. It's astonishing to me that with all that we're hearing about developing trusted relationships, that people are still pulling this crap. But at the same time, they don't know better. They kind of go out there, they see what other people are doing. Oh, LinkedIn, it's a sales platform. I should be selling products and services here. Well, I'm going to drive my sales pitch down the throat of as many people as I can today. I'm going to come back and do it tomorrow, the next day, and so on. And again, it turns people off. Nobody's selling anything to anybody under that type of premise. And it's a slow build. I mean, if you're going to win business through the social networks, it has to be done organically, methodically, sequentially, with gusto, and with the true concern in the welfare of others. And that, again, is more of an altruistic bend that I favor. The givers get mentality that's been advanced by so many.
That's like the universe of goosebumps, what you just gave me. And because, that authenticity is, and I like what you said, JD, because it's, and I'm listening here and I'm learning from you. I'm learning that patience really is a virtue. And perhaps Amy Vanderbilt's Book of Etiquette is a good read for those leaders that want to learn something, not only about themselves, but about the world in general.
True.
How ethics and virtues and etiquette can really come back into the equation, even though we're on this techno journey. I think we can still do that.
I'll give an example. If I may, throw another log on the fire, gents. I'll tell a little story.
Yeah.
I like to tell the story of back in 2013, I was a speaker at a conference of about 300 micro business owners, really big conference, important folks, got a beautiful property out east. And I was part of a all-star speaking agenda. I figured, well, what do they want with me? So I come up there and, I hadn't productized. I didn't have a book. I didn't have a coaching program. I didn't have this or that. I had one thing to sell from the stage, and that was a follow-up conversation with me. And if people want to hear from me, I have them fill out a form, they give it to me, I collect them at the end of the conference or during the conference, and I will follow up with them later. I'm not a prolific email marketer, but I do have a list, and I do communicate with people on that list from time to time. So to a person, I kept hearing from people, JD, can I call you JD? And I said, sure. You were the only person in this whole conference that didn't try to sell me something from the stage. You didn't talk about this program or that. You didn't tell me that just because I'm here, this $15,000 value is worth $997, and that you're going to take care of the first payment for me. You didn't go through all that rigmarole and all that crap that I've come to expect from some of these hucksters and charlatans that take the stage. And that's just part of my brand. I don't do that because I don't want to be sitting in the audience, get an idea or two or not, and then at the end, the speaker is going to just drill his or her product offering down my throat. It's just, I'm uncomfortable with it. I know it's coming. We all know it's coming, but when it doesn't come, that's the element of surprise.
Talk about a differentiator.
That's what gets me to the dance. That's how I am able to talk about what I do with people, and more. I'm preconditioned for good conversations that way.
And as Bill would say, it's sweet music to my ears. And that is an awesome story. And thanks for sharing that, because anybody that's listening to our conversation has got to be making some serious notes right about now. That's cool. That's very cool. And as a matter of fact, if I was at that workshop, I would certainly remember you, because that would be, oh, that's that guy from Chicago, JD, with the owlish communications, who didn't try to sell me anything. But
that guy with the round glasses who just walked around the stage.
Well, no, but I mean, that's
imploring
awesome.
People to be on LinkedIn.
Yeah, what you're doing is you just threw down the gauntlet to people that are listening. Be yourself. You don't have to always sell everybody, and create the relationship first.
Absolutely.
Powerful.
It doesn't happen without the relationship. I mean, who in their right mind is going to sell expensive data storage solutions to someone without knowing who they are, or just because they showed up in their homepage feed, or just because your automated software program scraped a few keywords off their profile? It doesn't make them prospects. And there's so much emphasis on lead generation and prospecting and getting people moving through your pipeline. And I think we need to de-emphasize that, move away from lead generation and into opportunity generation. And when you talk with people in terms of collaboration and co-creation, you're going to be much closer to selling them your solutions than you would if you just said, hey, look how cool we are. This is what we did. I've got case studies. You should read them.
Right? Everybody's going to do that.
Yeah.
I need a skillful response. So let's take a case that we're all familiar with. You get a reach out on LinkedIn from some new contact you've never heard
Okay.
of before. It's somebody who wants to do like all of the website services that are available in the world for you today.
Wow.
What do
Are
you,
there
how do you
anybody, is there anybody
respond?
that does that?
I can't imagine that. There must be like, I'm in such need that they hit me
Yeah.
all the time. What's the skillful response to that kind of thing, JD? You get it in your connection request feed all the time.
Well, the knee-jerk response for me is to report those people to LinkedIn. But the skillful response would, if you're going to keep these people moving, unfortunately, sometimes they'll kind of wriggle free and they'll still try to close you on some product or service.
Oh yeah.
I really think the ignore is the best weapon against that. It's infuriating for many people. I'll get one or two folks every other day who will message me by saying, why are people doing this? And I can't answer for that. I can't get into the mind of another human being, but I will say that again, it's this not trying to sell philosophy that works. And the more overt people are in their approach to close you right from the start, I mean, it just gives LinkedIn kind of a bad name, but it's not a LinkedIn problem. It's a LinkedIn user problem. So what's necessary? More education, more leadership by example, more doing things right, and more understanding that it's a slow build. It's not a quick hit.
That's a beautiful spin, JD, that you've taken there, because I've heard, not sure who it was, a guy from Apple said you're going to say, Stephen Jobs said, you're going to say no a million times more than you're ever going to say yes. And maybe that's a form of ignoring. But let me ask you this. Is there, since you love owls, owlish communications.
This is correct.
Is there anything spiritual with what you're doing?
Spiritual?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Wow. I've never been really asked about spirituality, and the owl is certainly a revered figure of spirituality. I have to believe that there are forces acting out there that move people to certain levels, certain scenarios, certain outcomes. I think that kind of bridges the gap into the karma conversation, but I never really go out thinking in terms of spirituality and being kind of in that realm. I really am in the tangible, feet on the floor, eye contact world, even though we're doing this through a virtual medium right now. So I'm more humanized in my approach. And I know that there are a lot of people who are predicated on faith and spiritualism, spirituality, and it's a driving force for them. Not so much for me, but at the same time, I appreciate it, and everybody's motivated by something.
Yeah.
I was up in, I was in South Dakota, and I was at a Sundance, right? I'd been invited. I'm a white guy, right? Wachichu is what they used to call me, and I couldn't get over the movement of the people and watching the community and everybody's place in the community. And I'm wondering, what am I doing here? Like, how did I even get here? And I think that I appreciate what you say, because I think that we're drawn, and maybe we can't explain the forces, but we're drawn in certain directions to cross paths.
Maybe.
And whether it's spiritual or karmic or whatever somebody wants to label it, that there's a reason. And I guess that's what I'm getting at. There's a reason.
One quote I really like, which is attributable to many in several
Bill.
different forms, is that when the student is ready, the teacher shows up. And or if you want to extrapolate to more of a business premise, when you're ready as an entrepreneur, as a corporate player, as a would-be leader, the right people seem to show up in your life. And I think we're seeing this a lot during the pandemic now, because this is the blessings within the curse. We're doing so much more connecting than we ever could in the real world through the technology. And we're meeting so many people at such a higher rate. Keeping track is tough. I met Bill through a pandemic-driven networking organization.
Yep.
I've guested on, I think you guys are my 25th podcast guest appearance in 9.5 months. I must be doing something right. Either that or I'm just damn engaging. But at the same time, I've been able to fathom this through my pandemic-driven interactions and pandemic-driven collaboration. I review people on LinkedIn. More people are reassessing themselves, rebooting, reconfiguring, refreshing, and the demand on what I do is very high right now. So I'm in some amazing conversations with people who are struggling with message clarity right now and how they should present themselves on a site like LinkedIn, which has truly ascended to the fore as the de facto first reference point on business professionals. So they're getting their houses in order, they're building the infrastructure, and that is what is driving these great conversations and these great opportunities that we seem to be having through a global pandemic and setting ourselves up for the recovery, which we know is coming.
I have to agree with you, because I've seen, and John, I know you've experienced this too, the level of the conversation is elevating.
Absolutely.
You can choose to be a part of the conversation that is not elevating, and that's fine. I'm starting to block people like that and unfollow them. But I want to be a part of this other more skilled conversation. And I know we're talking spirituality a second ago. So let's take it as everything that isn't physical, mental, or emotional, and just throw all of what's ever left into that spirituality category.
Okay.
And for me, what that means is inspiring. I want to be around people who inspire me, and this pandemic has caused that to happen. That's like a side effect of the pandemic, is somehow or another, people are becoming more inspiring.
And the same people who are bowing out or choosing not to participate are using a term like Zoom fatigue to kind of cover that up. Now, 2-3 months into the pandemic, we started hearing about that Zoom fatigue.
Zoom fatigue.
I'm always the inquisitive one, so I checked out the neuroscience basis for Zoom fatigue. It's no different than any of the other fatigues, but obviously when you're working and you're collaborating and you're having skillful conversations, I like your term, you're on, man. It's freaking showmanship, and it takes a toll on you. It takes a toll. And I've shut down at the end of the day, so exhausted. I hit my pillow so hard at night, but in the process of that day, I've been in several events. I've maneuvered through various online communities. People have sought me out for one-on-one conversations, and I them. So this whole re-engineering the network piece has become important for me. Reconfiguring the audience, looking at people with whom I've been connected in business with for maybe 15, 20 years, who may have lost some relevance, but new people that I've met through the global pandemic who have ascended and accelerated in relevance to me. So for me, it's almost a complete dichotomous life where we have these folks in business that we knew in the real world, and now as business has virtualized, these are the people who have become important to us in our online affairs.
And you can tell the fake it till you make it people just can't make it. But if you're doing what you love, it just shows.
I hope
you were
so.
talking about
I think so.
Seeing it. I can hear it. I can hear it in the voice, and I know within seconds whether that's an authentic person or not. And
yeah,
a real gift, because then I know if I'm spending time with somebody who is resonant with me or not.
Well, listen to the way people are delivering their value statements, or what you might call the elevator pitch. The awkwardness of the breakout room experience, and trying to just get something going between 4 or 5 people who've never met each other, but who are just in front of their webcams, trying to make something happen. This is where applied improv comes in. This is conjuring something out of nothing. How are we going to get through this next 20 minutes and feel like we've accomplished something? And there's many a time when people may come into one of those scenarios and go, okay, so like I'm a business growth architect, and I work with companies who bring me in to improve processes and increase operational organizational effectiveness. I mean, it's like you want to shoot yourself. These people have no concept. And by the end of the breakout, you're like, I've only got a minute left. Well, that minute can't tick off fast enough. So I think there's something to be said for, we're separating. We want to be true technicians. We want to resonate with people. I'll go back to the word I used before, create intrigue. And that's something that for whatever reason I've been good at.
No, and that's awesome the way you put it, JD, because And what Bill just outlined and what you just so articulated is that this has been a great opportunity for opportunistic people to follow this dichotomy. You're either making excuses or you're creating solutions. And it has been, I mean, it's been like a tanker truck full of lemons has been dumped on us. and who is going to make the sweetest lemonade? And
You
of
bet.
course, these metaphors are all fun, but you guys, JD, you've spelled it out. You've spelled it out. So much opportunity everywhere we look. And if you're getting tired of networking and meeting cool people, well, maybe you should do something different, and that's okay. But I love how you talk about these opportunities and and the intrigue is what has me intrigued, because I read something somewhere. Maybe you've read that book. I don't know, but about creating.
Oh, that book? I've read
that book.
You know the book
last week.
No, Mystique. Wasn't it titled Mystique or something? How to create this mystique, but real mystique, not a phony mistake.
Professional mystique.
Professional
Yeah,
mystique,
comes from
Like,
inside.
you gotta know more about this person. Who is this person?
So how does somebody give them, like, in a nutshell, the JD nutshell explanation of how do you create a personal mystique? How does somebody do that?
Well, that's a great question. And again, that arises out of authenticity and just doing something that people don't expect. Surprise is the core element of humor. I seamlessly let humor sift into what I'm doing. I let my natural facial expression, my default facial expression, be warm and welcoming, and maybe even crack a little bit of a smile. Getting noticed within the course of a networking environment where there's 20, 30, 40, 60, 80 people in there. And if you're going to unmute your mic, you better say something smart and exciting and thought-provoking. And that's what creates mystique, where you have to know more about people. And I've also taken it upon myself to be extremely funny sometimes in the chat room. So people think, well, this guy's a bit of an outlier.
So
I'm going to check him out on LinkedIn.
JD, when you look around at the world today, who are your example leaders that are doing it right, that really are hitting it out of the ballpark right now?
Well, that's hard to say because I'm not connected with all of them. And many of the so-called influencers or loftier figures that LinkedIn has even showcased are probably more mechanical behind the scenes. Maybe their admin is doing their LinkedIn account. But I see many heroic leaders during the course of my day-to-day, and there are many. But I also see people who are emulating them. And that's the greatest compliment of all that anyone could give me, is by watching what I do, trying to emulate, asking me how I do it. Obviously, retaining me to work with them is the biggest compliment of all. But at the same time, I'll hear from people, I don't know what kind of effect I'm having on them. And they will say, JD, I've been watching you out there and I really like what you're doing. You've done an amazing job at branding yourself. What can you share? I'm really struggling with my message. And one of the things that I, as a leader or any leader, would want to focus on is how to alleviate pain. And by now, if you're providing a service or selling a product or a solution, you kind of know what client pain looks like, feels like, sounds like. And the best marketing and brand strategy comes from a place of pain. And once you can meet customers or clients where they are and position yourself as the aspirin for their headache, the conversation becomes easier.
That is a phenomenal answer, because the greatest influencers are the ones that we influence in that pain alleviation. I was in La Paz in Bolivia, I don't know, 20 years ago, and I had a bag of peanuts, right? We're walking through the streets and there's this poverty. And I'm noticing this guy on the sidewalk with leprosy or something, he just doesn't look very healthy. And I walked up to him, I looked at him, I could look in his eyes, and I handed him the bag of nuts. And he looked up at me and he spoke broken English, but he said, "Thank you, I was hungry." And what it taught me at that time is that man influenced me and I was able to influence him, and in an authentic way that was so humanistic that you can never take those moments away. And so what you've just taught me JD, seriously, is that authenticity is the greatest influencer that we could ever have. And I got
Yeah.
to tell you, thank you for that, because
Well, thanks, man. I
that
appreciate
means
that.
a lot.
And you wonder if it truly is a coachable skill at this point, because there's so many people around the authenticity equation right now. How are we teaching authenticity? Is it something that we have to teach? Why should people be reminded to be authentic? Well, I think it's because for so long they operate outside it. Now, let's get back to these salespeople who are churning out all of these spammy invitations to connect. Are they operating out of their own authenticity? Are snake oil salesmen authentic? Maybe so, or they feel they just have to sell. But once you kind of gravitate away from this survivalist or desperation mentality and really meet people halfway and where they live, you can liberate the authenticity. You can channel your inner authentic, and that, I think, is where people are starting to get it, is when they really, again, are focused on the meaningful conversation, on engaging with people. Probably the most overused word in social media right now is engagement.
Seriously, they're
But
all
there's nothing behind to replace it. We have to use this word because that's now how we as a species are communicating. We're engaging with people.
so one step ahead of the pivot, to quote you, means inventing maybe the new language or the new way forward. I mean, we are stuck in this sort of overabundance of terms right now. Authentic, human, outliers, radio. I mean, authentic doesn't mean anything to anybody anymore. So
Mhm.
how do we sort of reclaim the language or reinvent the term or somehow this is a marketing question. How do we differentiate ourselves
Mhm.
in this giant, swamp of authenticity so that people can recognize it? How do you do that?
Takes time, takes exposure, takes effort. Leonardo da Vinci said everything is connected. There's an art and a science behind everything. And as I've moved throughout my career, I really haven't budged from what I hold dear, and I've stayed true to my core values and really kind of let that differentiate me, because that's what's going to come out in conversation. I've had a little bit of an edge as a speaker. When I turned the corner as a business speaker, I was going everywhere and in front of some amazing audiences at some of the great conferences, and had fun and met some great people and had a chance to build my brand in the real world. Think of where we're at right now as we sit here taping this conversation, where again, we're coming up on a year into the great pandemic, the great pivot. How do we stay one step ahead of this pivot? We've got to completely self-innovate, self-disrupt, disrupt the disruption that we are, and move into new thinking, new sensitivity about the people that we wish to serve and the people we are serving. And that's what I've done. As soon as we started sheltering at home, I realized that we would have to reconcile our professional value in the online world. That's where we were going to be confined. Couldn't get out, couldn't shake hands, couldn't meet people face to face and give them eye contact. All they could go on is how we looked on the other end of a webcam. And that was the trigger for a lot of great conversations that led to great engagements for me, because suddenly people started to care about personal branding.
Right.
Maybe they put it off. I'll get to LinkedIn if I need a job someday. Well, now they need a job, or they need to build a business, or they've moved out of corporate America, or they want to get back into corporate. So where is the halfway point? What are people doing now that will secure themselves long term? That's staying ahead of the pivot. We've all been given this amazing bubble of time to do things. How are you using yours?
Yeah, you mentioned a word earlier, education. And I love to read. I'm a glutton, and most people do, right? Can you name 3 books, not one, but 3 books that you think are useful to people that are trying to become a brand?
Boy, I wish I could. I'm so self-absorbed right now, John. I'm not reading anybody. I got when the book question comes up, I've got lots of books. I'll start reading a chapter or two and then put it down because the next book comes in. And I'm not a voracious reader. I'm just not a voracious reader like I used to be. I'm trying to cough one up on my end. It's like a giant hairball right now, and I'm just trying to put it out into the mainstream. But at the same time, I've always appreciated the writing of Seth Godin. I think that if you're looking to really use an economy of words and convey thought, there's no better role model than Seth. We look alike. I get mistaken for him at a lot of conferences I speak at too. But I think that you have to settle into your own style. I've always told folks that I don't want my perspective contaminated. And I've in the early stages, I read a lot of people who I fundamentally disagreed with their approach to LinkedIn or how they would do it or what they're talking about now. And still, these folks that come under the guise of lead generation experts, or I'm sorry, finger quotes, lead generation experts. They're not lead generation experts. I mean, and who is an expert? Please tell. I mean, nobody is an expert at this point. We are in a level playing field where some folks are elevating true to form, as they always will, but everything has been given this kind of fresh slate, this start over point. And all of the great stuff is still out there, of the great leaders. I'm reading Napoleon Hill. I'm reading Carnegie. I still think those are classics that stand the test of time, much like Chuck Berry, Jerry Lee Lewis, Johnny Cash, Elvis Presley music. I mean, nice. A lot of great stuff coming out, but the older I get, the more interested I'm in who did it first, who thought of it first, who innovated on it first.
I love that. You know, and one thing that comes to mind with your answer is exposure. You know, this has been a great time of exposure. And, you know, we've been able to see the underbelly of people's personalities and their businesses and their companies, but we've also seen the starship as well. And it really has separated the economy. You know, the authentic, which is a word that Bill just said, you know, has been overplayed at times, but it's also coming back in vogue. And I think that what I think is so cool about you, JD, is you're out there, but you're out there in a way that the world needs. People need to hear your story. And if they do, and they really get in tune to it and they open up, they're going to learn something from you. And I always say, if I can learn something from somebody that I meet every day, then I'm in a good place. And I got to tell you, I'm in a good place, man.
Well, that's the key to my book. I appreciate that, John. I honor you for that. I truly do. And that really is the key to my book. I never thought my story would be of interest to anyone. And now I feel it's my differentiator. And my book is part memoir, part guidebook. And I believe that the moment we see our stories as teaching moments, and the moment we decide to leverage our stories, we are authors, we are speakers, we are value creators. We can create value through our own experiential learning. Because I never set out to do the how-to LinkedIn book. I knew that the thing was going to change so rapidly that a book I would write would be obsolete inside of 3 months. And every year I would have to spend maybe twice a year updating the edition. And I know some authors who do that. That's not the book I wanted to write. I wanted to write something that was so evergreen, that was so relevant and applicable to many lives, or many lives who are like mine, where there is struggle to get known, struggle to elevate, struggle to leadership, struggle to become someone that in your mind you envision. And so many people, unfortunately, fall short. They never unlock their potential. Well, damn it, I've unlocked my potential. I just have to kind of get it out there into the world to read about it. And I thank you for the confidence to do that, because along the way, many people have said, you know, for you, JD, it's not about just teaching people how to use a website. In the early days, it was, but now it's about something far greater than that. It's about how can I explain to people that what I did, that what I went through as a kind of an early adopter, pioneer, blue ocean thinker in this, how can that resonate for people? How can that move them to greater achievement? I'm not where I want to be. That's the misnomer about all of this. I'm still striving, struggling, learning, applying, extrapolating. But at the same time, I know a little something about what it takes to build an identity in the professional world. LinkedIn gave me mine. I frankly don't know where I'd be without it. It gave me a chance to really escalate myself in the business universe, something that I wasn't doing before that. I mean, I was meandering around. I didn't know where the hell I was going in business.
So
But now I do.
Yeah, I like mantras, right? And I'm thinking,
Sure.
what I'm hearing is everybody has pain points. You've outlined that pretty eloquently. But what you do, and it's intriguing, is you lead through the pain points.
I lead with pain, John.
You lead
with
through
pain.
You lead with it or through it.
That's heavy.
Yeah. No.
I'm not really in touch with my pain all that much. And I'm not,
but you're leading them.
I'm a happy guy.
Points. No, but you're leading through the pain points. And it is, Swami, whatever, but everything's, that's what people, and I know Bill and I've talked about this so many times, that's that authenticity that draws people to people. How do I get through? How do I make that connection with that person? And you know what? You taught me this today too. At first, you want to get upset at these people trying to sell you something right off the bat. But now I realize they may be doing exactly what they think they need to be doing. And maybe I need to be the ignoring type, or maybe I need to say something. Maybe there needs to be a response.
Or maybe you just need to buy their product or service so you can get them off your back.
That doesn't help, by the way, from personal experience.
I'm going to go broke doing that. So what is your personal mantra then? What's your personal mantra? You got to have one, JD. Come on.
My personal mantra.
Yeah.
That's a pressure on the spot question. I'll say that I'm trying to stay one step ahead of the pivot, be relevant, achieve inner peace, and age gracefully. Does that sound familiar?
No, man.
Sounds pretty familiar.
Follows, yeah.
Yeah, sounds pretty.
That's what I try to do. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. If a little business comes my way, that's wonderful. But you know what? It's all about how can I accomplish something during the course of a day? What's in store for me today? Sometimes I don't know. Sometimes the best plan in business is no plan at all. Sometimes the day is dictated by the first email you read. And I literally, I think that's the whole blissful ignorance of my joy, is that I don't know what's on the other end. And I can plan and plan and plan. And I was a strategic planner in my day. I was a goal setter. I was really had that stuff front and center for me. Wrote it down, the whole shot, and now, not so much. And I still get things done. I still accomplish a lot. I slay my dragons on a daily basis. I encourage people to do the same. I lend a supportive ear when I'm asked. I love to guest on podcasts like this and talk about how we can, all three of us here, make people better. You have the vehicle. Maybe I'm bringing in a little insight that people haven't heard before and told in an entertaining way that creates intrigue.
Yes.
So that's what it's all about right now. Let's live our lives, get stuff done, be happy, gain the respect of family, friends, followers.
Yeah.
What else is there, guys?
Why be bullish when you can be owlish?
No, that's my mantra.
No, it's beautiful.
I'm adopting that as a mantra.
No, you're not. But you're taking me to these heights, and anybody that's listening has got to say to themselves that this is the meat and potatoes of authentic conversations, and just how do you be yourself? You just be yourself by doing those things, and you'll connect in a way. You're going to meet your tribe. That's another word that gets overplayed, but
that's actually a good one. We are really finding our tribe now in the pandemic. Another great blessing within the curse is that we are really sifting through people on a frequent basis. A great insightful comment and finding our place. I've gone through organizations and meetings where I really didn't feel any kinship, where it was an empty experience, or I was just there as a one and done speaker to do a program, and nobody ever followed up. But you're meeting now kindred spirits who really pine for that human connectivity that maybe wasn't there before the coronavirus crisis, and will hopefully remain there in the recovery. Because when everybody's inoculated and immunized and goes out and shaking hands, or maybe bumping elbows again, it's going to be a different dynamic. I can't wait to see what it looks like.
This
Brave new
excitement
world.
and anticipation and all of that is something that I love having turned that corner with you, because we can, right? Why not? The alternative just isn't too happy. But turning that corner,
Yes.
thank you for steering us that way, because that, I think, is the opportunity that we have right now.
Stay
Yeah,
healthy.
and no
Just-
pun here. Your enthusiasm is infectious, but in a good way, and that's awesome. I'm just blessed to be here and to finally make your acquaintance, JD, and to see Bill after 3 weeks. I haven't seen him in a while, so it's all good stuff. And how can people get a hold of you?
Well, thank you for having me on to angulate my story. Well, one of the great aspects of the podcast has been, as I've seen it, and getting ready to launch my own as well, is that it's such great content creation and can be so valuable to people who are trying to architect a platform, as I am, as you are, because you start to approach your story from different angles and tell it in different ways and approach yourself, kind of reconcile your professional value with each guest appearance. So I thank you for that. I had fun. How can people get a hold of me? Well, it shouldn't surprise anybody that I'm on LinkedIn.
You're probably, yeah.
They can always find me on LinkedIn, searchable under JD, no periods, and then my name. I should be findable there, and I'm out there. You put me in a Google chat box, you'll find me.
Yeah, true. Which is a good way of being able to sort of sift through, who's below the ads. Those are the people you want to know, right?
The sponsored ads, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. If you can get to them,
yeah.
if you can get to them. So I got to join John. Blah blah blah. I got to join John in saying thank you, because JD, you know what? I think this is the work right now. Is creating these authentic conversations and taking time with them. Not just listening to 12 seconds of a podcast, because you'll never make it through our intro if you only listen to 12 seconds. You got
even with that cool thumpy bongo music.
Yeah, exactly. You got to get into it, right? And look people in the eye and actually have that conversation in a way that's meaningful. And so do that, right? Do that. Everybody out there listening, if you're still with us now, do that.
I have a great outlier quote that I'll leave you with, and then I'll let you guys close shop. And that is, nobody is everybody's cup of tea. Strive to be an acquired taste.
Oh man, that is like that's like a bordello. That's awesome. Thank you for that, and looking forward to the next meeting, and I wish you great health and success with the podcast. We'll be listening, and stay healthy during the holiday season.
John,
likewise.
A bordello? I mean,
I like Merlot too, but
talk about.
That's gonna be with me the rest of the year probably.
I think that's inspired, man. That is inspired.
What did Poe have? The Amontillado? I mean, we could go there, but no, it's all good. But thank you for that quote, because it means a lot.
Yeah, we'll put that in the top line so everybody can find it and remember that this is the Bordello show.
No, JD, the fine wine.
The fine wine.
I'm serious. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I'm seriously, JD. And thank you, Music Care, Green Zone Hero, #Planet, our sponsors. We love this. And thank you, audience, for ringing the bell and subscribing. See you again in the next one, probably next year.
Happy holidays.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of AHO Radio. Information we mentioned is probably in the show notes, but if we missed anything, please let us know and we'll get it added for you. Subscribe to the AHO Radio channel on YouTube to stay connected. And, as always, we wish you health, success, and significance. AHO!